Meeting of the Texarkana, Arkansas Board of Directors. At this time, we'll have a roll call.
Director Harris,
Here.
Director Hollibush,
Here.
Director Brewer,
Here.
Director Jewell,
Here.
Director Hart,
Here.
Assistant Mayor Roberts,
Here.
Mayor Brown.
Here. At this time, we'll stand for our invocation to be given by Assistant Mayor Terry Roberts, and also the Pledge of Allegiance will be given by Director Roberts.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, I pray for this board meeting this evening. Give the board members wisdom and guidance as we deliberate on the items before us. May every decision we make be beneficial to our city and the citizens, and always be righteous in your sight and glorify you. In our Father's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. At this time, we'll enter into our citizens' communication time. If you wish to address the board tonight, it would be beneficial for us if you fill out a citizens' communication card, give that to our city clerk. She can get it to us. We'll have a record of you speaking tonight. At this time, we have Mr. Robert Fellers to come speak before the board about Windstream.
I'm here representing Shady Pine Circle. Our leader, Ms. Metcalf, had other engagement. She's our speaker. I guess she asked me to come do this, and I'm not good at speaking. I never had it. It's the first time I've spoken anyway. The Windstream has come in with fiber in it, which that's a good thing. But the way they're installing, I think we're probably one of the first neighborhoods getting it. I brought some pictures. They're doing a very poor job. They're putting these huge 3-foot round cylinders in our front yards. Where the kids, between houses, we got 10 houses and we got 5 of these. Would y'all like to look at these?
Yeah, bring it up, Robert.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Robert.
What's the address of Shady Pine?
6 Shady Pine Circle.
What ward is that?
Who's yours?
Mine?
Okay. And it's degrading our property. Behind my house, Windstream has an engine where they run the telephone lines. They could have easily, behind all 5 of our houses that are on Sanderson Lane, they could have easily come in and put them in the backyard where all of our electric equipment comes in, our phone equipment. But it's so much less money for them to do it this way and degrade our property. Everybody in that neighborhood's upset. And I would like somebody to look into it.
Yeah.
I do know they have rights to easements. But the state of Arkansas has given them multi-millions of dollars to put in this internet.
Have y'all voiced concerns to, have y'all voiced concerns with the,
When they call the mayor,
no, I mean with the company that said Windstream. Have y'all contacted Windstream yourself?
no, because they're subcontractors that are doing it. The Windstream will claim it. And I can only, this is the CEO of Windstream that's phone number. I can only speak for one. Y'all can speak 30,000 people.
I've got some contacts.
Someone to get instructions from the wood, what they're doing to the neighborhood. And I think that they're put thousands and thousands of these. Ms. Metcalf is my next door neighbor, and she said she named them cartoon cells because they live in her neighborhood. And I would just like somebody, before they mess up this whole town, look at this. they're taking the easiest, cheapest way out. And I'm pretty sure they may be doing it with our dollars. Our last governor, I think, gave us $48 million to expand into the rural areas. I'm not sure they're not fixing to spend a lot of that money to try to push through real quick and get a lot of customers back.
Well, we'll be glad to voice your concern, but I'm afraid they're going to say they have that right and everything. But we'll take your number and call them and express the concern of the neighborhood.
One of those in his property.
Yeah, understand.
It's gonna mess up if you come look at our street right there, we've got 10 houses, those big old posts, 20 yards for the kids to play baseball.
Ben, it's in my ward. I will come by and take a look at it for sure. Yes.
So that's my concern, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, if I could get that, or
Yeah.
Is there anyone else that wishes to address the board tonight in citizens communication time? Ms.
I
Bell?
appreciate y'all.
Yes, sir. Mayor Bell?
Yes. Mayor Brown. This is the first time I've been on this side of the podium. I'm Ruth Penny Bell, and I've come here on behalf probably of more citizens of Texarkana, Arkansas than we know of. I have a friend and her husband who are octogenarians. I'm one of those. But thankfully, I live in a neighborhood that keeps the property up, keeps the trash pulled up, put into the garbage cans, and it's a nice neighborhood. But not everybody in this town is privileged enough to have neighbors as I do. Now, I've watched this, but this is by far the worst case I have ever seen. There's a neighborhood off of East 50th Street. This was a good neighborhood. People kept their yards and their homes up. And I now have a friend and her husband who live in a house, and I witnessed this myself. In fact, our public works person has worked with us on this. There is no way to describe this house that is the bane of the entire neighborhood. The woman's house is completely full of junk. You don't know, this could be labeled hoarder, it could be labeled anything you want it to be. There are trucks, pickup trucks, that are filled and even covered over the cabs with clothes, sacks. There are rodents that come out from over there. It is by far the worst thing I've ever seen. Now, they go out. Now, this is what my understanding is. There is this routine that has to be followed, and they go before a judge. Now, if I'm wrong, Tyler, would you correct me? And the judge says, I'm going to give you 30 days to get that cleaned up. Guess what? They go and they pick up maybe a sack of trash. Same thing. There is no penalty. Now, there is something that I want this city to do about this. I'm going to make it my project. Not only because this is a friend of mine, but I've seen this happen way too many times. Con Street, for example, used to be a prime location in this city. Before, right after I got out of office, a lady called me. She had a really nice home. She said, I want you to see what's in the neighbor's yard across the street. She said, I'm presently trying to sell my house, and everybody who comes here says, we don't want to buy this house. She had a very bad home. There was a huge, completely enclosed trailer that was in the front yard of the neighbors. There were electrical lines running and connecting it, and somebody was living in it. And this person was renting it out. Oh no, that is too low. Well, I didn't know what to do then. But I'm here asking you to help these people who are trapped. My friend goes to your church there. In fact, she was a secretary up there for years. She can't sell her house for what it's worth. They're trapped there. She told me herself that another neighbor had called the city about this. And the person who's living in the house came out and called my friend out in a threatening manner to the point that she's afraid to even say anything. Well, I'm not. That's the next process. Because something has to be done. Now, I have checked. There's something that's called nuisance abatement. I asked Tyler, I said, Tyler, can't you write them up, or can't you do something that's going to keep this from repeating itself and repeating itself until these people have to go into a nursing home because they are afraid? The lady actually acted threateningly toward them. Gentlemen, something has to be done. This has to stop. There are too many neighborhoods. It could be yours next. It could be yours. It could be mine.
Right.
And this is not right, just because we can live in a neighborhood where we're not threatened right now. It is not right. It is not just for us to forget people who don't have any other options. They're living on Social Security and retirements, and they don't have any other options. I ask you, and Josh, I've tried calling you.
5 minutes.
I want you to write up something. As I understand, George was in the process of doing that when he resigned, to get this abatement, nuisance abatement that can be used by our staff. Do it. That's all I ask.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary Beth. Does anybody else wish to address the board? Anybody else? If not, we'll move into our presentations. The first is our presentations of our service awards. We have 2 of those tonight. I understand one of those is not here. We'll recognize Mr. James Shute Jr. with the Water Utilities for 15 years. And I know this guy is here. We're going to recognize our TW Director, Gary Smith, for 20 years. At this time, we'll turn the podium over to our Airport Director, Mr. Paul Merlick, for an airport budget presentation.
Good evening. I'll speak loud. I'll bring the,
It's on the side.
there we go. So bringing two budgets for you to consider today, our operating and maintenance budget as well as the capital budget. Right now for our operating maintenance budget, we are looking at expected revenues of $1.37 million, expenditures of $2.72 million, which will be a deficit of $1.35 million. Arkansas side would be $605,633. To help address that in the future, moving forward, we have a capital budget of $3,583,340. The Arkansas side will be $1,565,921. So let me talk a little bit about what that capital budget's about. We've been in discussions with two different companies. One is a maintenance repair overhaul facility, and the other one is an aircraft painting facility. We worked with three members of Congress, Representative Westerman, Fallon, and Moran, to create a package that is currently going through Congress. It has made it through both of the committees, and they're expected to vote on it in September unless there's any kind of a continuing resolution on that as well. The state of Arkansas is going to be putting in a package of $17 million in order for us to lengthen the primary runway by 500 feet, strengthen it by doing a 5-inch overlay, which will allow us to bring in up to Boeing 777s for maintenance. It's a much larger aircraft, very heavy. And so we will also be lengthening a taxiway to get to that 500 foot and widen it to being 75 feet wide. This will then allow us to do a development. The first one that I have here is the paint facility. The apron is part of that package from the federal government. And then we are working with private entities for development for the building. The company is looking at 150 jobs that pay an average salary of $50,000 a year. So this is a kind of a breakdown to show all of the different pieces that are going into it. So we have federal and state. We will also be working with the State Aeronautic Board for matches to all of those federal pieces. And so then there is a local match to that, because every time you have a federal grant, it's 90%, and then there's the 10% match. So for all those pieces, that's what comes to $1.4 million. The remaining amount of that is that every year we have access to 3 grants from the Department of Aeronautics, and we wanted to make sure that we budgeted to be able to utilize those. As we go to develop and bring in jobs, we will need to go out to these sites and mitigate them, because they are not, as we would call, pad ready. So we will need to do environmental mitigation. We will need to run utilities to them, remove trees, and get them so that way it's easier for groups to come out and just build moving up. Only by bringing in these developments will we be able to get into long-term ground leases, which is additional revenue, have landing fees, and fuel flowage. Beyond that, we will be working to bring in another airline and expand the terminal as well. So it's going to be a multi-pronged attack, so that way we can start to generate more revenue and bring down our deficit. So the yellow line is 2024. The only reason that next year we are anticipating having a higher amount was that the Texas side said that for the capital budget, they would be going for a bond this year. But to be able to match that moving forward, they've asked that we move that to our O&M budget. So that you'll see that on next year's O&M budget. We'll have that as a line item as being for the ADA grants. At that point, until we have development, it will be pretty steady. The only thing that you would see is differences would be CPI kind of increases based off of inflation. But we should have a drop in 27 for when the buildings that are with Signature, formerly TAC Air, they will become property of the airport. And then beyond that, it will be required for us to really have any kind of other development to see any kind of significant decreases. Are there any questions for me this evening?
Any questions for Paul? Terry?
Well, it's just, when we were at the workshop, was our market share about 9% of, like with the Longview Airport, Fort Smith, are we at about 9% market share?
So our market share is, I believe the last time they looked at it, as we're going through the master plan, we've looked at that, it's about 12%.
Okay.
We do lose what we call leakage, about 5% down to Shreveport, but the mass amount of that is actually lost directly to DFW and Love Field. We should be able to capture some of that with a low-cost carrier because the price difference, it makes a big difference there. But we're also hoping to recapture some folks with the new terminal building. I can say that this last month, for the numbers for June, that was our best single month of emplanements that we have had since we began looking at that back in 2010. So we're hopeful that before we've gotten to the new terminal building, we're already seeing improvements over 2019, which was pre-COVID.
Well, the advertising y'all have been doing has had to have helped. I mean, the little infomercial that you have, it's fantastic. And if you're on Facebook, I mean, it just pops up on a regular occurrence. So whatever you're doing, it's working.
And we will continue to work with like the A&P Commission to continue those ad campaigns, as well as marketing specifically for the new terminal building this next year.
But Paul, ridership is not going to drag you out of this deficit.
No, that's where
Don't make hardly anything off of this ridership.
where we make money is from parking.
Parking.
So if we were to double our emplanements and we doubled our parking, that would be just another $300,000. And that is not going to completely cover that gap, but it is a piece of it. So I will do what I can to try to get those numbers higher, but that was where we looked at it and said, if we don't extend this runway to start bringing in companies, then we're not going to have a mechanism to truly bring down those costs.
Director Harris?
If I heard right, you stated that basically the city gonna have to come up with $1.6 million this year I say next year for your budget.
That would be for the capital side, yes, sir.
So $1.6 million, okay. And then you also made state something about another airplane company. Now, who they just was here, United?
Say that again.
I was just trying to say who was Continental, well, they used to be United.
The Houston flight.
Yeah, the Houston.
United.
Okay. Now, as you know what happened to United, I think United had got $900,000 to come. And once that money left, I guess you say they left. But for my thinking, they wouldn't have left if they was making money.
Yes. One thing to keep in mind with that, they started in February. People were still wearing masks at that point. So the same day they announced they were coming in, they also announced that they were cutting 10 cities. And so that was already putting us on a very shaky spot. Now, there are a couple of different discussions that we've been having. American Airlines has really liked the fact that our growth has been coming back. And so we are talking to them about possibilities of expanding to other routes. We will continue to talk with United Airlines, though we won't be offering them an incentive to come back. But they are looking at aircraft that are smaller markets that they could potentially do here. But the bigger one is really looking at those low-cost carriers because...
Okay. But the point what I was trying to make is that
Yeah.
I don't see United coming back here. You know, they've been there twice, if I understand it. But like me, would it be more feasible trying to get a plane company here that having a direct flight, maybe like say to a timely flight, like going to Las Vegas or going to Florida? I can see that's about the only way it gonna work, because having a flight, a big company like United, at the end of the day, it's about how much money they can make. But if you had a timely, a seasonally flight going to Las Vegas, shall I say Florida, that may work. But the main thing, I guess that would work. But I guess the other question is, if we pass that budget tonight, I'm throwing this question over here to the /city manager, financial director. What's the outlook of coming up with $1.6 million that's gonna be added that we got to pay at the next cycle next year? So how's that looking? Because if we pass this tonight, and we already know by me asking that question, it's gonna be $1.6 million. How is it gonna affect our budget for next year? What we're not gonna see or what we're gonna see, and how much did we pay the airport at the last budget cycle last year? What's the difference?
300.
So for the, go ahead, Director.
I'm sorry, I thought it was 300,000.
It was.
So
for
we're going
the
from
20
$300,000 to $1.6 million, $1.3 million in.
There's two different parts.
There's two-
The
yes, sir.
deficit for 2024 is proposed at 650. Then the 1.6 is on top of that. It would have to be pledged to the airport and provided to them sometime in 2024. So the deficit is the general O&M operations budget is going from 300 to 650 in '24, and then the 1.6 is on top of that.
And the one thing to consider is, in 2023, we put in 300,000. 2024, we're looking at that additional 600,000. So that's an increase of about $350,000 that's going to come out into our budget. So when we're looking into how to finance the $1.6 million, I looked at it a couple of different ways. My initial thought was maybe go out and just do a general note, as a bank note, a local bank note, and then put that into our budget. But knowing that we are going to see another potential increase in 2025, you won't want to put that drastic burden on your city's general fund for that short period of time. So the way that we would need to handle it would really be a bond issue. And knowing that we would need to do a bond issue, we would need to look at the city overall, see where our needs are, if we would want to proceed with that, so we can come up with a plan on how to move forward.
Now, when you say a bond issue, does that mean an issue that by the people or just by the 7 members up here?
You would want to do just a revenue bond issue on this one, not a general obligation that require a vote of the citizens.
This does not require.
Right.
Mayor.
Yes.
But the bottom line is that you've got to get creative to figure out how we're going to pay these increases every year.
That is correct.
So if we go and we borrow to pay debt, and then we've got more debt, I've flown out of your airport. I was at Exec Plat for probably 10 years. I flew, the last year I flew was 180 legs out of your airport. And I got to tell you that when we pass this, and I know we're already here and that we're going to have to bite a bullet, but you got to get creative, man, because I'm telling you, last time when I voted against the budget, I had people that called me that said I was against the airport. I'm not against the airport. What I'm against is the airport taking money and us having to cut Tyler services. She has to cut services. We have to lay off police officers and fire officers. This airport is going to, if we don't get some revenue in, cargo, FedEx, get that runway extended. Let's build some cargo facilities where you can unload that cargo and have it ready to be put on a truck.
And that's actually one of the reasons that we're very thankful to have the relationship we do with the Ready Group. They're working hand in hand with us, and we have been meeting with companies. And that's kind of the thing is, at this point, we have companies that are interested in bringing in wide body aircraft. We don't have the facilities to do it. And so we need that runway to get them. But what that also kind of provides to us is when you look at those wide body aircraft, your competitors are Fort Worth, and then it goes all the way over to Memphis. These airports were developed, and the land that's available is limited, or it's at a premium, but we have over 300 acres. And so we're able to provide not only then a local workforce, but a property that's at a much cheaper rate, and that's very attractive to these companies.
Well, Paul, that was my question in regards to like economic development. Let's go back to the runway extension, just to make sure that I understand. Prior to the renovation, what was the largest planes that we had going inbound and outbound?
So the largest aircraft that we can handle is a 737.
That we had prior to the renovation?
That's correct.
Okay, and now that with the foresight of completion of the airport, what's going to be the largest to come in
So if we,
Think
yeah.
of economic development, the party we want to bring in.
If we do this runway extension, we can handle a limited number of 747s, which would be the largest aircraft we could bring in. For cargo, we could bring in a 757, which is what Shreveport receives now for cargo. But these much larger aircraft, they'd be coming in empty because they're either being repainted, or they're having their upholstery redone, or they're being converted from passenger aircraft into cargo aircraft. So we would be able to handle much larger aircraft because they're not filled to the brim with stuff inside of them.
What is your average ridership per month?
So we are just going to be about 40,000 enplanements total for the year. It fluctuates through the year, so like January, February is always really low, but the summer is really good. So this last month, we had 4,300 passengers.
So you're saying 40,000 for the year?
Yes. It's about 109 people a day.
109 people a day?
Yes, sir.
So just as a side note too, is the 1.6 million that we're discussing that we would possibly issue a bond on, that first and foremost would never be done if our grant money, the assistance we're getting from the state and from the feds doesn't come to fruition.
That is
We will
correct.
not need it. So you won't get it. You won't get your runway extended, but you won't get it. That's over a $30 million project to do it. The second thing is you're into, if we get awarded this money in September and the state gives us their portion and we get everything together in 2024, we're at the end of 25 before this project would even be complete practically, sometime in 2025. So you're going to face that deficit again, certainly in 2024, but you won't borrow that money, you won't do anything, pay it, go do anything if we don't get that money.
That's correct. It would only be used as a match to a grant. So if for any reason the federal grant does not come through, we would not be spending that money.
Director Harris.
And I guess I'm gonna bring up one of the same questions I brought up during the workshop we had. And I was looking on Wikipedia, and I noticed that I was looking at Hot Springs, and Hot Springs do not have a commercial flight going in and out of there, if I'm right or wrong on that.
So they have what's called essential air service. So they have a smaller aircraft, it's about 8 seats, and they fly to, I believe, to Nashville and also to DFW.
Okay, but the point what I'm trying to make is, they have an annual revenue of, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was about I'm just gonna say $6 million. So how is that possible when they do not even per se have a American, United, JetBlue, you name air service? So and we looking at for our airport, Texarkana, I'm just gonna say Texarkana Airport is to do something. How's we gonna get our airport the revenue? I know you're saying you're talking about this company coming here. Do you have some guarantee if we do all this that that company may come, or they just a wishful talk?
So let me first address the hot springs. They do have an annual revenue of about $5 million. One, they are a destination airport with the lake and everything. That does help them. However, they are the ones who control what are called the fixed base operations. So they're the ones who sell fuel, and they own all of the hangars on the airfield to rent. We have a fixed-based operator. It used to be TAC Air. It is now Signature. And so instead, they own the buildings and they sell the fuel, and they give us a ground lease. So that ground lease is about 32 cents a square foot. And so they had that for a 50-year period. And that is one of those reasons why they as a company made money renting and selling fuel, and we made very little money. However, we didn't have to have the capital to build all of that infrastructure. In 27, in September, those buildings then revert to being owned by the airport, and then we will be able to work with them on, instead of a ground lease, a building rate. And so that will drastically change that equation of how much revenue we make from the fixed-based operator. So that is one side of it. On the other side, we do have 2 letters of intent. One is from a maintenance repair overhaul company that's looking at 747s, and the other one is the paint company. The paint company came to us first, which is where we're working with them to actually do the apron. And they've both given letters of intent, and that would be as part of the process through the state. They get more and more, we'll say, specific guarantees. So the state will be meeting with these companies and explain to them what kind of incentives that they can give. And we'll continue that process of bringing them down to the signed agreement. But pretty much the state isn't going to give funding unless there's someone there. All of these parties involved have pretty much said that we don't build stuff with the hope someone's going to come. We only build stuff if there's a demand. And so that's been a part of that process, was first coming up with companies that would be willing to come here.
Okay, and my last question is, I know you say you can build something that with demand. What if El Dorado give these companies the same opportunity to come to their city, or Hot Spring? What would stop that we go spend that money? But I think you said we're not going to spend that money unless you know for sure that they're coming. But how many years would they be here? I know this is a wishful thinking, forward out thing. But what can you narrow this down to this company that's coming? How far leverage that we have, even the city, to leverage, based on the amount of money that we may be spending?
Right. Most of these companies will sign 10-year agreements, and then at that point, you will continue on. I can tell you with at least the paint company that we've been speaking to, they've been in operation for over 50 years, and they have not left any of the airports that they're at. But you can't always say, based off of the past, predicting the future. The other part of that I will mention is that concern that a Hot Springs or Longview would try to take the company from us. One of the things that early on we were having discussions with are going after a company like Gulfstream. And we discovered that pretty much any airport that had 5,000 feet could get a Gulfstream in. And so all of those different communities are competing directly with each other. And it does come down to what city is going to give the best incentive package. And that was why we are instead moving to be able to have a niche market of these wide body aircraft, because there are not a lot of airports that can support the weight or have the length necessary to bring them in, which means you are now competing against communities that do not have that ability to say, I can give you 100 acres. They don't have 100 acres at Memphis to give. So that's one of the things that allows us to be more competitive. And plus, when you're a company coming into a city like Memphis and you say you're going to bring 150 jobs, that's not a lot of jobs for that community. And so they're not going to get the big attention. They're after companies that are going to bring 1,000 jobs. But 150 jobs can have a major impact on a community of our size. And so that allows us to be able to be more competitive and help them feel more comfortable coming into a community like this, where they can see that Texarkana College is working directly to find ways to train their people, that the Ready Group is working with them, that local politicians are working with them, and they're seeing then a very different reaction than they do from these larger communities where they're considered a very small operation.
Paul,
Thank you.
just to make sure I understand, so what you're saying here as a contingency plan to generate more operational income and revenue is for the larger planes, the larger body planes to come in that's your contingency.
Yes.
To
See, one of
this
the
income we need.
So we would enter into ground lease with the companies for their actual buildings. And that becomes long-term steady income. But beyond that, we charge a landing fee. And having a larger aircraft means that each airplane will generate more revenue. And since they're so large, they take on much more fuel. And so it's very easy to see that an aircraft even going between us and Dallas may take on 20,000 gallons, which will see then a much higher fuel flowage. So that's where it will end up benefiting us beyond just a ground lease, but also the fact that it will do this. And the bigger impact is the fact that now we have jobs that are on the Arkansas side and are stable. And they're good paying jobs.
Let me ask you this right here, 747s to bank, how many 747s could bank on this new runway if we get it developed successfully?
For the annual operations, we expect that, like these, the paint companies, they actually take about 2 weeks to turn an aircraft around. If they were having one come in every 2 weeks, we'd be able to support that.
I'd just like to say too, it's just in my opinion, clarification, is that the 1.6 million capital investment that we would be making doesn't really have anything to do with bringing those businesses in. We're not going to borrow that money to get those businesses. We're investing in that capital to strengthen and lengthen the runway, period. Whether these businesses that we have and have talked to at this present time come to fruition, that's great. If we had the runway lengthened and strengthened today, we would probably have one of those, in my opinion, in our meetings and discussion with them. But we're making that investment in the future, regardless of whether it's these two companies or companies on down the road. You're not going to see any future development at the airport until we can lengthen and strengthen that runway. So that $1.6 million capital investment is to lengthen and strengthen the runway. It's not necessarily business incentives. Those things would be on top of getting the runway lengthened and strengthened.
That's correct. And then once we have it, this becomes kind of the foot in the door. Now we'll be able to attract more companies in, and we'll just continue to develop around that.
So, Paul, the issue really is not whether we're going to pay for it, the cities. It's how the cities are going to pay for it. We're obligated. There's no backing out of this. We've got to pay for the operation of the airports, right? We're in all kind of problems if we try to put a halt to this and put it in reverse, right? FAA would be big time on our butts, right?
We do have grant assurances. So every time we take federal money, it obligates us for another 20-year period. And then the airport, then to be able to continue to get federal funding, yes, you have to continue to operate it. And that we recognize that it's a challenge. And that's why we've been trying to find more than just the airline, other ways that we can create revenue out there.
So the city's predicament is, how do we pay for it? So
Yes,
that
because
is our dilemma that we're going to be having to discuss on a yearly basis.
yes, the FAA, if you don't, then they can make it so we cannot get any future funding. They can make us repay back that 20 years, any funds that we have received, and then they can also issue civil fines.
In our best case scenario that we looked at on your graph up there, there's no projection that shows the airport being self-sufficient in the foreseeable future. I mean, this is an issue that's going to be occurring 20, 25 years from now.
The more that we develop, the more it will go down. But yes, that is
down,
true.
but not be eliminated, right?
Not for the foreseeable future, sir.
Right. But it's something that a problem that we have to contend with every year. No way around it.
It's what I've been saying for about 2 or 3 years. This is one of those situations that's going to get worse before it gets better. But pretty soon it's going to get a little bit better.
Correct.
But we got to have a lot of pieces of the puzzle to fall together. And on that same note, I can tell you that in my meetings and my dealings with Paul, I commend Paul for what he has been able to do with the airport. Since he's been in charge out there, we would probably be in a lot worse shape off if it hadn't been for Paul and what he's been able to do and his expertise in that field. And I know he's doing what he can to do it, but it's something that we'll just have to continue to deal with. And hopefully we can get everything done with the runway and get extended, and then we can go develop it.
Well, Paul, I mean, you don't build a runway overnight, you don't build an airport overnight. What year was this decided that we were going to go with this airport? The expansion, the new terminal, that we were obligated, that we took federal money?
I was going to say, Mayor Ruth Penny Bell was here when we were working on realigning I-49 and putting a bridge at East 19th Street. It was a process that over 16 years was going on. And so there were certainly little parts of that I came in 2020 in January, and they had already broken ground on a taxiway that was going to service it. It's our new taxiway Delta. They had already begun that process, but that taxiway was only to be used for that new terminal. So I would say at that point, you pretty much were in it, because if you had at any point during that process decided not to build the terminal, the FAA would have required a payback on that taxiway.
So, I mean, going forward, I mean, it goes back to we don't have an issue. I mean, we have to do this because we don't have the money to repay the federal government anyway. And I think if you're not investing, if we're not willing to invest in the city, why should we expect any other businesses to? And I know it's kind of a hard pill to swallow, but the master plan that we passed a few months ago, I think is going to steer the city in the right direction. The airport, the water bonds that are going to be issued, not having a master plan since 1988, I think hurt the city a lot. And I think having everything updated, I think we can probably get more federal grants, more state grants. And I have to agree with the mayor. I commend you on what you've done, because you've done a really good job.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Paul?
Well, I commend you as well, Paul. But, also, I would like to remind my friends on the board here that free money's not free money.
I agree.
And when we go out and we bite off a big grant that we have a match, I mean, even what you showed on the screen a while ago, you showed a 10% match, a 20% match. That was 25, 45, 75. I just want to go on the record and say this. It's nothing against you, Paul. This airport is a runaway train on cost to this city. And that lady, as good as she is, and she's probably the best, I know she's the best we've ever had. I mean, I wouldn't trade her for anyone. But I know that we all worry about our city. We do. I'd love to have the first greatest of everything. But when we talk about $1.6 billion, $600,000, this is real money. Where are you going to find it? I mean, we can sit here and go, yeah, give you $2 million, give you $600,000. And then somebody calls me and I go, Tyler, I need you to patch this street over here. And he says, I don't have any money to even do it. I'm telling you, this is a runaway train of cost to this city. And I just think it was a bad decision in my opinion.
Any other comments? If not, we'll move on. Thank you, Paul. We'll move into our consent agenda. We have 3, 4, 5, and 6. Yes.
I want to take off one about the raffle. I don't know which one. I think it's 5. Mine compared to the one blank.
What?
About the raffle.
The grapple truck?
Yeah, the
That's
grapple
number
truck.
5.
Number 5. Mine.
Director Harris has asked to remove number 5, so we'll have items 3, 4, 6, and 7. What would be the desire of the board to adopt the consent agenda?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
So have a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Director Harris.
Oh, I was just trying to find out, does we already have a raffle truck? If so, what's going on with it? If not, is this a replacement, or do we, what's going on?
We bought a grapple truck in 2018, right after I came on. Unfortunately, we had an accident and it was totaled about a month and a half ago or so. So that's why you're seeing a new one here.
How did it get totaled?
The gentleman driving it accidentally left the boom up a little too high and went under the railroad bridge and hit the railroad bridge.
Any other questions?
I have more questions, but that don't need to be said up here.
Okay. If not, I'll have the city attorney read the resolution.
Whereas Public Works is requesting the approval of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas Board of Directors to authorize the acting city manager to enter into a purchase agreement with River City Hydraulics Incorporated for one grapple truck through the Sourcewell Buy Board in an amount not to exceed $197,178.90. And whereas funds will be allocated from insurance proceeds in the amount of $121,000 $478, and the Public Works capital outlay line item in the amount of $74,748. And whereas purchase from this source meets all bidding requirements and the 2023 budget will be amended to include the insurance proceeds, and whereas the acting city manager and staff recommend board approval. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas, that the acting city manager is authorized to enter into a purchase agreement for one grapple truck from River City Hydraulics Incorporated through the Sourcewell buy board at an amount not to exceed $197,178.90. Pass and approve this 7th day of August, 2023.
So the city attorney's read the resolution. What would be the desire of the board?
Motion to adopt.
Second. Have a motion and a second to adopt. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll, please?
Harris,
Yes.
Hollabush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Jewell,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes. And the resolution passes. I would like to ask the board to consider changing the agenda to move item number 10 to the first item to discuss in regular business. It's permissible with a motion and a second and a vote. I'd like to consider item number 10 first at the beginning of the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
So I have a motion and a second to move item number 10 to our first item of regular business. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll, please?
Harris,
Yes.
Hollabush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Jewell,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes. So we will consider a resolution amending the Board of Directors Rules of Order and Procedure Manual. One of the things that I've researched and found, I've asked the city attorney to look into this as well as the city clerk, is that in previous meetings there was some discussion about how an ordinance can be read 3 times in its abbreviated form if there's an objection from a director to not approve of that ordinance being read a second and third time at the meeting. In the 2 previous meetings, we have separated those motions to vote separately on abbreviated form, and we have voted on the ordinance readings 2, 3, first, second, and third readings. There is nothing that we've been able to locate with the municipal league or with state statute that states anything that an ordinance only has to be read. It states that an ordinance has to be read 3 times as long as it's approved by 2/3 of the governing council. As long as it's approved 3 times, whether it's in the same meeting or 3 separate meetings, that's how an ordinance is passed. The requirement to have an ordinance read in its entirety, if the consensus of the board wanted it read in its abbreviated form, is in our rules of order for this city. And this changes that to say that that ordinance can follow majority rule and follow state statute, in that 2/3 of this board wants that agenda read in abbreviated form and 3 times. It can be done at that same period of time and that same night. We don't have to separate these motions. So I would entertain support for this procedural channel and govern. It mirrors, in my opinion, state law. If the majority of this board wants that ordinance read in abbreviated form, then it should be read in abbreviated form. Any discussion? Director Harris.
I am saying that stuck my hand up yet, but I guess you know that was coming. I guess this was another procedure that was done, I guess because what I done at a meeting, and this probably was not the first time. Now, what was in this ordinance for this thing, it was before my time on this board. And I would ask Mr. Director Jewell, was this on the procedure while you was here?
That
First time.
predates my time on the board back in the 90s, so I think that's it before then.
So why it was on here, I don't have the slightest idea, but I have used it, and if I'm not mistaken, maybe 3 times. And I think my first time when there was a facility ordinance request was that was done. And I think the second time, Mayor, when you put on the ordinance about the airport, which I had issue with that we was giving jurisdiction to somebody that live over in Texas to file a suit based on our airport here, but take the jurisdiction to Texas. Now, we got an attorney over there that he can correct me if I'm wrong, even though it's done by an attorney. Can we put the jurisdiction, do we have the body to put the jurisdiction where somebody can be sued at?
I have no, I'm not familiar with that.
Well, when that
Next lawsuit.
Yeah, a lawsuit that, when the airport ordinance was done, it was written in there that you can sue somebody when you go to the airport in Texarkana, Texas, or Texarkana, Arkansas. Even though the ordinance, even though the building is physically located in Texarkana, Arkansas. So, but,
That I don't know.
okay, but that's.
Is that what, is that?
No, but that's not it. But I'm just saying
I
that,
was wondering-
that was one of the reasons, I'm just trying to get my background as to why I was doing
Oh, I
that,
got you.
3 times. Then the other time was a facility use request, if I'm not mistaken, that I had put one on the agenda and the city had put one on the agenda at the same time. It was a facility use request, and it was stating on how we gonna utilize and rent out the facility, and that was the time. Now, the last time it was done at this last board meeting, that it was done. But my question is, we talk about we being transparent and openness, so how is the public gonna be aware of what we voting on, you know? And my question to the attorney, what procedure would say we was reading this, voting on this here? How can we say we being I ain't gonna say every ordinance require a reading of this, cause I know I wouldn't want nobody to read no 25 pages of this right here. But basically, last time we're giving out certain rules and things what the employee committee had done, and I just thought that need to be made aware publicly. Now, whether it's done at the 3rd reading or the 4th reading, that's, we go to the rules of orders of, could I say, Robert's Rules of Order. Now that, I don't know, but I do know it was in there, and I'm stating this since this was basically done because something what I have done, which it ain't the first time.
I would like to just say this, that the background behind this is necessitated by the fact that we should not have to vote separately on every ordinance as to whether it can be read in abbreviated form or not. Reading, and that one objection to that certainly you have indicated you have taken advantage of, and I'm sure some other has taken advantage of it. But that's here nor there for me. The other's procedural. One, it's the majority. The board votes with the majority. So all you're doing is aligning this particular policy or procedure up with state statute. The second thing is that all of our board packets are a matter of public record. They are posted on the website. They can be printed. I talk to 2 or 3 people every week that talk about you can have access and emailed our board packets to you, so you see what's on our agenda and coming forward. So all those people have ample opportunities. It's published in the paper, is it not, Greg, on what's coming up on the agenda? I heard it on the radio the other day. So we're doing and trying to be, in my opinion, as transparent as we can. It's not going to make the citizens do it, but that has nothing really to do with cleaning this procedure up and saying the majority rules. If 2/3 of this board wants that thing read in abbreviated form and read 3 times in one night, it follows state statute, it should pass.
But my other question I would ask, which I can see it coming, just say for instance, this pass, which I know I'm 99% sure they're gonna pass, 6-1. I'm 99% sure of that. But just say if we had a ordinance reading and I decided I wanna read a certain 2 pages out of that. Whereas that next y'all gonna probably be saying that a board member, you gonna limit the board member as to what he can say at a board meeting. Because if I say I wanna read this page here, section 2 and section 3 and section 4, I may not read the whole thing, but yet if you read it, you want to read it in abbreviated form, how would a board be able to get
I would
certain?
say you could read it in citizens communication time, or you have a comment period at the end of the board
Let me
meeting.
get finished, if you don't mind. But I would think you get into censorship when you start doing that, because there may be a certain item in there that the public, I think the public need to hear about, and then if I'm sitting up there and want to read this page out of here, I know you may direct me and say, oh, Mr. Harris, I don't think you did need to say this, that. So when do that ordinance or my comments get into what rules of order to get into First Amendment censorship? And that's the question I throw to the city attorney.
With every ordinance, after 3 readings, we have an opportunity where it's opened up to where anybody can speak on it. And I think that covers that.
And the board controls whether it's read in abbreviated form.
I'm not talking about that. After you pass this tonight, and I decide I want to read page, section 2, section 3, doing time thing, but you say, Mr. Harris, you violating our ordinance.
After it's passed?
No, after I'm saying, when you pass this, when you say, I want you to, any comment or question, but you already passed saying that it be read in abbreviated form. So when will that abbreviated form exceed the ability of the board to speak on the item without getting involved with censorship? And I know I'm using the word censorship because to me that's a strong word to be used.
I think you're taking that opportunity right now to speak on this ordinance.
Yes,
And I think you're giving us a perfect example of the lack of censorship that we have.
No, and that's not.
the ability, I mean, you could read the ordinance right now.
But
if
that's
you want
not,
to.
no, that's beside the point. But I'm saying that when you pass this, I didn't say now, I said after you pass this.
After you pass the ordinance being read in abbreviated form, when would you ever be able to go back and read 2 pages out of it?
Yeah.
Never.
Never. See, now you're getting into it, now you come to a legal.
But we've done that since the inception of the city. When an ordinance is passed, an ordinance is passed, whether it was read in abbreviated form or long form.
I think that would be an action of censorship. You do that because I think I should be up here and get to the state, say to the point as to just say last time we was doing something. Well, if you're reading in abbreviated form, and I want to make out a point.
But you're saying the only reason that you can do that now is because the certain procedure allows for one objection for it not to be read in abbreviated form.
That's not what I'm getting at, Mayor. I'm getting at after you pass this, and then I want to decide to read, just say, if you say this need to be read in abbreviated on this resolution here, and I said, and it be read in abbreviated form, where I say, well, I want to bring out section 2 and section 3 and section 4. But you already said it needs to be read in abbreviated form.
Director Harris, can I help you just for clarification purposes? And maybe I can provide a little insight. But during the discussion of any resolution or ordinance, before it's passed, you can comment or pick out specific sections in it to discuss and go over during that time. So if I'm understanding this procedure correctly, all this does is it keeps the city attorney from having to read the full ordinance unless there's a 2/3 vote saying that he needs to. So if at any time before you vote on it and when you're discussing it, if you want to read a section or 2 out of it, you have the ability to do so during board commentary and board discussion on that agenda item. Is that not correct?
That is correct, but he also stated that once it be read to it, then if you have any question or comment, you still limit the question or comment, because I may not even notice something till later on that we start, like say for instance here, this thing just came on this thing today. I'm the first time seeing this. I don't know when would this be put in the agenda package. I don't know.
Last Thursday.
When would this was put on the day?
That's public facilities that was done today.
Okay, so if you want this to be read in its abbreviated form, then I'm over here looking at it, and I see, well, section 2, I need to say something about that, read why we got that in here. But if you already agreed to read it in abbreviated form, technically, I cannot read nothing out of this. That's the point I'm making.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to say one thing. I think this resolution might have resulted from my actions earlier. My point in all that was that the state law and our rules of order conflicted. So this clarifies that, so I have no problem with that. I never wanted the ordinance read in its entirety, so this clarifies that for everybody, I think, so I have no issues with it. So.
Is there any other discussion? If not, we'd have the city attorney read the resolution.
Whereas to ensure that the current rules of order regarding the reading of ordinances during meetings of the Board of Directors of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas is not more restrictive than Arkansas law, it is necessary to amend the existing Rules of Order and Procedure Manual. And now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas, that the Rules of Order and Procedure Manual for the Board of Directors of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas is amended as follows, and the clerk is directed to include these amendments in and republish the rules in an updated and amended form. Number 1, the paragraph under readings is deleted in its entirety and the following is substituted for the same. All ordinances shall be read aloud at 3 different meetings unless the Board of Directors votes to suspend this rule in accordance with Arkansas Code Annotated Section 1455-202. The reading of an ordinance's title shall constitute a complete reading of this ordinance. Passed and approved this 7th day of August 2023.
City Attorney's read the resolution.
Question, Mayor.
The board.
Question.
Yes.
That specifically says ordinance. What about resolutions? Just like,
Resolutions are always read in their entirety.
oh, they are?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm clear.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Motion.
I have a motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Harris,
No.
Hollabush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Jewell,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes. And the resolution passes. Moving on to item number 8, which is to adopt a resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2024 airport budget. Is there any other discussion or anything prior to the vote? If not, I would instruct the city attorney to read the resolution.
I just got one.
Yes. Okay.
What's the difference between the airport budget and the capital budget?
The capital is the 1.6 million for the runway extension matching grants. The airport budget is the 2024 FY budget for the 600 deficit.
The $600,000 difference
Yes,
that we got to come up with?
yes. Any other questions?
Mayor, I want
Yes.
to question again. A resolution is always read in the full
Do what now?
resolution number 2301.
pardon me.
Caption.
That resolution was approved by the Public Facilities Board.
that's-
That is not a resolution for today.
That is
We have
the
an ordinance
resolution
on.
for the Public Facility Board approved tonight. That is not for us. That's already been approved. That's why it's on your table for tonight. That was the meeting they held today. Any other questions? Could you read the resolution?
Be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas, that the fiscal year 2024 Airport Authority budget attached hereto and made a part hereof is hereby approved and accepted. Passed and approved this 7th day of August 2023.
The city attorney's read the resolution. What will be the desire of the board?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Let's have a motion and a second to adopt. Is there any other discussion? Could you call the roll, please?
Harris,
Yes.
Hollabush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Jewell,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes, the resolution passes. Item number 9 is to adopt a resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2024 airport capital budget. What would be the desire of?
Motion to adopt.
Well, we got to have instruct the city attorney to read the resolution, please.
Be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas, that the fiscal year 2024 airport capital budget attached hereto and made a part hereof is hereby approved and accepted. Passed and approved this 7th day of August 2023.
City attorney's read the resolution. What will be the desire of the board?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Let's have a motion and a second to adopt. Any other discussion? Yes.
I guess the question one more I need to ask is how much of this we going? This is based on if the grant,
If we get all the federal and the state money and all the pieces fall into place, then we come up with this one.
okay, but, okay. Oh, I do want to make a statement on this, but I'm reading Bruce, I got I guess an email from Bruce Westerman on what's name, so I'm going to go ahead and read that. In the 4th district, we are fortunate to have numerous of small and medium-sized airfields that serve Arkansas and visitors from across the country. And we are here to a robust agriculture aviation industry. As such, Congress must make timely and strategic investment that will boost our aviation capability. As a member of the Transportation Infrastructure T&I Committee and Aviation Subcommittee, I am active to work to ensure that this happened. A few weeks ago, the U.S. House passed a historic bipartisan legislation from the T&I Committee that reauthorized the Federal Aviation Administration for the next 5 fiscal years. Securing growth and robust leadership in American aviation improved efficient at the FAA, enhanced passenger experience, and encouraged aviation innovation and more. I submitted 2 amendments to the bill that would strengthen data privacy and improve safety of agriculture aircraft like crop duster. I support provisions to make significant advancement to support the El Dorado, Hot Spring, Cameron, Texarkana Medium Airport. This is the Security, Growth, and Robust Leadership in American Aviation Act affect more than just passenger and pilot. This legislation would benefit farmers, business owners, healthcare providers, everyday folks through provision of robust aviation safety, economic, and local investment. The bill authorized funding to support Essence Air Service ESA program in the next 5 years. This program ensures commercial air service from small regional airfield from Hot Spring, Memorial Field, and Southwest Arkansas Regional Airport in El Dorado. This program serves much as rural West and special areas where folks are often served hours away from the closest majority airport. This program is assessing to maintain air service and economic activity that come with in rural community that otherwise couldn't have those capabilities to engage in that industry. Legislation like supporting growth and robust leadership in American Aviation Act includes strategically and timely provision and support general aviation airport and most airport in District 4. I boosted and the safety of education of agriculture, aviation aircraft like crop duster, which play an essential role in success of agriculture, aviation industry in the state across the country. While 4th District may not be home in what some may call a large and majority airport hub, but we can be a leader in the aviation industry. Legislation like this is a different step in getting us there. Until next week, Bruce Westman, Arkansas 4th District. Thank you, that's it. That was a letter. He does a weekly newsletter, Bruce Westman, and he sent that out this week since it was in regard to really what happened, I guess this, so that's the reason why I read it. Thank you.
So have the city attorney read the resolution. Have you already read it?
Again.
No, I've already read it. Okay, we have a motion and a second. We have a motion and a second.
Yes, sir. We good to go.
All right. Could you call a roll, please?
Harris,
Yes.
Hollenbush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Jewell,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes, resolution passes. So we're moving right along to number 11. So we're going to consider the following. We're going to conduct a public hearing regarding the issuance of Waterworks and Sewer Facilities Revenue Bond Series 2023. We're going to adopt the ordinance authorizing the City of Texarkana, Arkansas Public Facilities Board to proceed with the issuance of the Waterworks and Sewer Facilities Revenue Bond Series 2023. Our Finance Director, Ms. Henderson, and our Water Utilities Director, Gary Smith. So at this time, we will open a public hearing to consider the bonds for the Waterworks and Sewer Facilities Revenue Bond Series 2023. So the floor is open for discussion, questions, anything that would want to hear in this public hearing. Any discussion from any Director Harris?
I would just like to know what's the interest rate. That's all.
We can discuss that upon passing at 412. What was it?
Yeah, it ended up being 423.
423. Any other discussion during the public hearing?
I'm sorry, 417.
417. Okay, better. Any other discussion? If not, we'll close the public hearing. We will now consider an ordinance authorizing the City of Texarkana, Arkansas Public Facilities Board to proceed with issuance of the waterworks and sewer facilities revenue bonds. What would be the desire of the board to have the ordinance read on its first reading?
First reading, abbreviated form.
Second.
So a motion and a second to have the ordinance read on its first reading in abbreviated form. Any discussion? Could you call the roll?
Harris,
Yes.
Hollibush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Jewell,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing the City of Texarkana, Arkansas Public Facilities Board to proceed with the issuance of $20,650,000 of waterworks and sewer facilities revenue bonds, Series 2023, approving certain agreements and documents in connection with the city's participation in the transaction, prescribing other matters related thereto, and declaring an emergency.
Ordinance has been read on its first reading. What would be the desire of the board to have it read on its second reading tonight?
Motion second, abbreviated form.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to have it read on its second reading, abbreviated form. Any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Harris,
Yes.
Hollibush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Jewell,
No.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing the City of Texarkana, Arkansas Public Facilities Board to proceed with the issuance of $20,655,000 of waterworks and sewer facilities revenue bonds, Series 2023, approving certain agreements and documents in connection with the city's participation in the transaction, prescribing other matters related thereto, and declaring an emergency.
Ordinance has been read on its second reading. What would be the desire of the board to have it read on its third and final reading?
Third and final reading, abbreviated form, please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to have it read on its third and final reading in abbreviated form. Any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Harris,
Yes.
Hollibush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Jewell,
No.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing the City of Texarkana, Arkansas Public Facilities Board to proceed with the issuance of $20,655,000 of waterworks and sewer facilities revenue bonds, Series 2023, approving certain agreements and documents in connection with the city's participation in the transaction, prescribing other matters related thereto, and declaring an emergency.
Ordinance has been read on its third and final reading. What would be the desire of the board to adopt?
Motion to
Motion to-
adopt.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to adopt. Prior to the board voting to adopt this particular ordinance, is there anyone here wishes to speak for or against this particular ordinance? Seeing and hearing none, could you call the roll, please?
Harris,
Yes.
Hollibush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Jewell,
No.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes. And the ordinance is adopted. The city has also asked, the water company's also asked for an emergency clause. What would be the desire of the board?
Motion to attach emergency clause.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to attach an emergency clause. Any other discussion?
What's the purpose behind the emergency clause?
To get the bonds issued. Keep that good rate.
Well, I thought once you sign the paper, the rates is locked in, right? But
Any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Harris,
yes.
Hollibush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Jewell,
No.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes, and the ordinance passes. Item number 12 is to adopt an ordinance levying the 2023 tax rate. Ms. Henderson. Mr. Fowler, I think that concludes the evening for you. Thank y'all. Gary, go spend that money.
Thank y'all very much.
Good afternoon, Board of Directors. This is a simple housekeeping issue that we have to approve every year. Will be no change in the tax levy. This tax levy is for 5 mills for general fund operations, 1 mill for the fire pension fund, 1 mill for the police pension fund, 1 mill for the library fund, and 2.5 mills for general obligation bond debt service payments. Are there any questions?
Yes,
Yes,
Director
sir.
Harris.
We can change this if we wanted to, right? Because all that is publicly decided.
Yes, sir. So for general fund operations, we're currently at the max. For the fire and police pension. There has been some discussion at the state level to raise that from 1 meal to 2.5 meals, but there hadn't been any movement on it. It has just simply been proposed. And then for general obligation debt service payments, it is currently at 2.5 meals, but the maximum for that is 5 meals as well. But that will require a vote of the citizens.
Any other discussion? This is an ordinance to pass tonight. It would
Thank
need
you.
to be read 3 times. What would be the desire of the board to have it read on its first reading?
First reading, abbreviated form.
Second.
So a motion and a second to have it read on its first reading in abbreviated form. Any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Harris,
I'm gonna say yes, but I know I could get my last thing in before we go to the next meeting, but yes.
Hollabush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Jewell,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance levying the 2023 tax rates and for other purposes.
Ordinance has been read on its first reading. What would be the desire of the board to have it read on its second reading?
Second reading, abbreviated form, please.
Second.
So a motion and a second to have it read on the second reading in abbreviated form. Any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Harris,
Yes.
Hollabush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Jewell,
No.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance levying the 2023 tax rates and for other purposes.
Ordinance has been read on its second reading. What would be the desire of the board to have it read on its third and final reading?
Third reading, abbreviated form.
Second.
So have a motion and a second to have the ordinance read on its third and final reading. Any other discussion? Could you call the roll?
Harris,
Yes.
Hollabush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Jewell,
No.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
An ordinance levying the 2023 tax rates and for other purposes.
Ordinance has been read on its third and final reading. What would be the desire of the board to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
So have a motion and a second to adopt. Prior to the board voting to adopt this particular ordinance, is there anyone here wishing to speak for or against? Hearing and seeing none, could you call the roll?
Harris,
Yes.
Hollabush,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
Jewell,
No.
Hart,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes, and the ordinance passes. Board commentary, is there anything any board member wishes to address in board commentary?
I'd just like to, I hate that he left, but I'd just like to give a big kudos to Gary Smith. I think he's one of the, if not the best PW director we've ever had. He's so he just responds, and he has a crew that has great work ethics and great attitudes. I've just gotten a couple of emails and texts this week that they were talking about how professional his crews are and how pleasant they were to be around, and that's directly because of the leadership of Gary Smith. And so I just wanted to publicly acknowledge that. And then I wanted to say, Tyron, that we are so blessed to have you. And I'm so thankful that you work for us, and please don't ever leave.
Anything else?
Good job, Art.
If not, the board will adjourn into executive session to consider some appointments to our Advertising and Promotion Commission.
Make sure we check.
It's not working off, it's the.